Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. I'm excited to be here again today with my good friend Mary. And I know Mary is not just very excited, but very, very excited for today's conversation. I'm Mary. I know you're feeling a little under the weather, but today's topic is perfect because we're going to talk a little bit about health and wellness. So let's get right into the intros, Mary.
Absolutely. It is perfect. And thank you, Joseph. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And when I say this guest, the topic is so timely. As I said to her before we started, we hit the record button. So I'm delighted to be with Ashlee Kaufman. She has an MMS and has worked as a physician assistant. She's a leader in wellness and supplement formulation with over 30 years of industry experience dedicated to science-driven health solutions. Now, that in itself is intriguing, and I love it because, again, backed up with science. Ashlee, welcome to the Prime Life Podcast. Please tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Hi, and thank you guys. I really appreciate being on here today. So I do have 30 years of wellness experience. I practiced as a physician's assistant in my early years of my career. Moved on to the corporate life, started a .com during the .com boom of 1998, 99, and really realized that I loved the business aspect of the wellness space versus the clinical. Grew that for about 5 years and sold it to a large pharmaceutical company. And then just decided to stay in the wellness space, whether either working for large companies or startups that wanted to get in this space. I've worked internationally, but really the past 10 years has been cultivating formulas. I have 4 patents under my name, but also helping companies take science and create formulas that are based on that science and based on what you're trying to treat. So I've really focused my last 10 years on making sure that the consumers have something very, very unique to the market.
So Mary used the phrase science-driven health solutions. You just kind of touched on that a little bit. Could you maybe explain what that means and give us maybe some examples and help our audience understand what this is all about?
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of people will take supplements and they take kind of what I call the neighbor supplements or their friend supplements, what's worked for them. And, at the end of the day, it might not be the proper supplements for them, but it also might not be the dosage that they need, the formula that they need. And taking science and looking at kind of what the science has for each ingredient and what it does once we ingest the supplement is critical to kind of formulation. So for example, a lot of people will take a vitamin D3. They now take it with K2 because that's your bus. But if you look at D3 and you look at the science behind your body and vitamin D, you actually would know that L-arginine helps reactivate dormant vitamin D stored in your body. So when you're exposed to sun or you're exposed to additional vitamin D, your body will actually store it when it needs it. So reactivating that piece of it helps versus just kind of giving yourself vitamin D. And consumers can overdose themselves. There is a vitamin D toxicity that you have to be concerned with. So that's one piece of taking science and putting it into a formula so that you don't need a high D3 if you add L-arginine into the formula because it's now reactivating things that are in your body.
So I would love you to define I hope I'm going to say it correctly.
Methylation.
Methylation. Because you talk about that in the information on your website and in our conversation. What is methylation? And
So
how does it affect the overall health, and why is it so important to understand?
So it is a critical biochemical process in your body. Everybody goes through methylation. And when you have, let's just call it mutations in your methylation, or your body's not able to do the proper methylation, it can affect anything from inflammation, your mood, your gut health, cardiovascular. And what it does is when you find out, for example, that you have a gene, let's just say you take a methylation test that we offer, and you have a gene like the very popular MTHFR, which a lot of consumers have, don't know that they have it. And really, what that gene says is that you can't take in folate, which is your B9, but it links to other things as well. So, understanding your methylation issues is critical to kind of how your body takes in nutrients, how it produces glutathione, all of the things that kind of happen kind of start with methylation. And knowing what genes you have and traits in your methylation process is critical to almost all of wellness, because if you have it, then you've got to change your lifestyle and change how you ingest. Let's just say B9, you would need the methylated formula so that your body doesn't have to convert it, because the body can't convert it.
So I'm going to ask you maybe a question that may cause some uproar with the medical world. Why don't doctors, medical professionals, and I know you have a degree in medical science, talk about nutrition as much as they should, and or these topics that you're talking about now?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
I think some of it isn't, some of it goes down to how they were trained and the things that they were trained in. And, that you can kind of just say, if they don't take the effort to learn about additional things, they only really know the criteria of medical. Some of it is the time. So if you are a family practitioner and you're seeing 100 plus patients, you've got 4 or 5 minutes with that patient. You don't have enough time to go through methylation issues. And especially if someone comes to you and says, I just feel tired all the time. I feel a little moody. A lot of physicians are very apt to just go, okay, it could be, maybe you've got a little bit of deficiencies. Let's just do some blood work. But that tells you real time what's going on, but it doesn't tell you what you're genetically made up to have. So connecting those two dots, sometimes physicians just don't either have the time, they don't know enough about it, and they'd rather a consumer just go with like a nutritionist or a naturopath, because they're more apt to do these types of tests, because it's really about changing your diet, not prescribing a medication.
That was a slightly politically correct answer, because I was hoping you were going to go and dig into the big pharma and the world that we live in with instant gratification, pop a pill, solve a problem.
I think instant gratification for sure plays a role. There's even consumers that want instant gratification. A lot of people will say, look, just give me something that's going to solve the problem. It might cause 10 others, but it solved the problem. It's really about the consumer and what they want. And I think if you seek out the type of physician that you individually want to treat yourself, like for example, myself, I will go as natural as possible before I have to go to big pharma, just because I know that with big pharma comes side effects and other things. if you're not that consumer and you just want to basically say, look, I just want to solve the problem. I don't have time for this. I'm rocking and rolling every day and I eat whatever is accessible to me, then you probably won't even listen to the doctor that's saying, hey, you need to change your lifestyle, you need to change your diet, you need to do these types of medication, supplements. So sometimes it's you seek out the physician that's really the best for you.
No, I agree with that. And I also think this because and I want you to share a story if you will. But first my question. So I know it's not all about me, but I was thinking my husband's a great example. Eats right, a lifetime exerciser. Again, not perfect diet, myself included. But there's this DNA component. Like we are our DNA. So
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about what role DNA plays in terms of being able to give an individual good guidance as to how they can move forward in a way that's really going to work. And it's not like you said, like, yeah, it works for my neighbor. It's got to work for me.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that, Ashlee?
Yeah, so a lot of it goes, we talked about methylations, we talked about genes like the MTHFR, there's the COMT, there's SAMe, there's a lot of, there's many of them. But sometimes DNA wellness tests like ours actually test for kind of how your makeup is, meaning, and this is kind of goes into the nature versus nurture concept that a lot of people talk about. But for example, if your kidneys aren't filtrating properly, you're genetically made up to where your kidneys are just not going to be at the level that an average level is, or your thyroid, or you have the risk of cardiovascular. If you know those today, that you already genetically are made up to have issues, would you change your path today to prevent what I call disease interception, push it down the road, or completely eliminate it for your lifespan? Would you do that? And I think most consumers would say yes. Like, let's talk about BRCA. People have the BRCA gene, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get some form of breast cancer. It just means that you're genetically made up to potentially have it, but that BRCA gene has to be turned on. So it's the same thing with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 is lurking there, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get it, but you could if it's activated. So I think when you do DNA testing, you can kind of see like a blueprint of a house. And let's just say, you're looking at the blueprint and you say, you know what, I don't like the bathroom over there. I want it over here. Yeah, I like the sink over here. You start changing things based off that blueprint. Well, it's the same thing with the DNA testing. We give you a very outlined of these are the foods that you should avoid based off of sensitivities. Like some people don't realize they have a salt sensitivity that cause high blood pressure. So if you know the sensitivities that are lurking in your body, you know the foods that you need to eat more of, you know the organs that you might have issues with or systematically have issues, you're going to now change your lifestyle to say, okay, I'm going to make sure that I detox the right way because my body doesn't detox properly because I have an MTHFR gene. Your body just can't detox the heavy metals and the things that we're exposed to. So you're going to now do that a different way than asking your body and your liver to do it. So that's how you kind of utilize it in your everyday life.
Can you share a story with us of like, and maybe take a step back? When an individual comes to you, what's the process? And then can you share a story of someone that your work has helped based on the tests that they've received and the guidance on how to move forward? Like the example you gave where you said, oh, some foods you should avoid. Some foods are good for you, or this vitamin over here. So if you could share that with our audience, that would be great.
Yeah, so we actually have somebody that we've been working with very closely. We have VIP physician and pharmacist on our team that work, if the consumer wants to, works directly with them. Especially consumers, our average consumer is 45 and above. They're in that change of life. They're in, all of a sudden you can't see and all the things that happen after you turn 40. And sometimes you have a lot of prescription drugs that the consumers, are saying, do I need all of these? Well, we have one particular consumer that, she was on 5 different blood pressure medications. And her blood pressure was still high. She didn't know what was going on. She had leg pain that she thought was part of like the medications she was taking. So we decided to go ahead and do a full span of the methylation, the DNA wellness test. And she actually realized that she did have a salt sensitivity. So, which was causing a lot of her high blood pressure. She was able to reduce it to 1 medication versus 5 by changing her diet, changing the way that she ate. And at the same time, she was very deficient in magnesium. And she added magnesium to her diet and to her supplement protocol. And now her leg pain has completely gone away. So whether it's connected to the magnesium or not, that is one of the side effects is leg pain. And she's actually feeling much better. She's off of big pharma almost completely, but she's living a better life knowing, okay, I need to eat more of these foods. I need to reduce these foods. Salt is in everything. So now she has to look at your supplement facts and figure out what the sodium content is so that she can kind of like pick and choose. But the more she does that, she's realizing she's actually living a better life, a more active life. And she's not so concerned with the ER visits of high blood pressure, which is causing systematically other things. So I think that it's very important for the consumer just to realize, kind of like put the pause button and say, okay, I'm going to stop taking all these supplements and all these things that I'm doing. Maybe not prescriptions until you find out, but I'm going to figure out what's going on in my body, because it could be a very, very easy, quick fix that the consumer doesn't realize that it was just a quick fix. And you change the way your body was methylating, you change the way your body was looking at things, the way it was ingesting nutrients, and it makes a world of difference.
I have so many questions and so many comments. So let's just start. So we did an episode early on in our show about epigenetics, which was biological age and an actual age and all this stuff, reversing your internal age, if you will. You were introduced with, I think the term was personalized medicine or something to that effect. I forgot the exact words.
Mm-hmm.
How does, there's this whole world of personalized medicine where they're creating drugs that are designed for you. So is there overlap in that science? AI is being touted as a future for healthcare and identifying diseases and curing them, if you will, or at least creating cures for individuals based on that. So where's the Venn diagram? Like, how does this all play together in the sandbox?
So we do personalized medicine. So once they get their DNA, we kind of give them the suggestion of what supplements they should be taking based off of their DNA results. Meaning if they're already systematically going to be low in B12 and B9s and the Bs, we then say you need to be taking a B, but you need to be taking it in this format, the methylated format, or like, for example, we have a fermented, which you don't have to convert. Then there's also, we're partnering with an AI company, the first of its kind, to take hundreds of thousands of case studies of supplements and put them into this AI system to where I could actually put in somebody's DNA results and it will spit out the exact formula down to dosage of what that consumer should be taking based off of the actual science of those ingredients and of the markers. So we're getting to a place now where we can actually start, if not reversing the biological age, but also going forward, the longevity of the human could be completely different if we can start doing disease interception. The moment that you can tell people that you potentially have the risk of Alzheimer's, cancers, we have one partner that they're doing at home for pancreatic and lung cancer, which we all know is a death sentence. So the more you can kind of know ahead of time that you are predispositioned to potentially have something, is the moment that you will change probably your lifestyle. And the moment that you do that is going to start adding years back to your life.
Quick question. I ask this question a lot to many of our guests. Is it ever too late to start? Like,
No, I don't think so. I think the moment that you know, let's just say you were a 70-year-old and you realize that the aches and the pains that you're feeling as a 70-year-old could be down to the fact that your body doesn't know how to turn off inflammation. One key factor that can cause all of the problems and the problems that you're having. So inflammation, as we know, is probably the core root of a lot of disease and illnesses. The moment that you can be told your body can't turn off inflammation naturally, you need to kind of help it, is the moment that you're going to start feeling better, because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize that my life could be so dramatically different just by knowing that my body didn't know how to turn off inflammation. And it was just building and building and building. Or your body didn't know how to digest B9 or folate, and you now aren't storing it to where you're actually feeling worse. Now you're actually using it the way that it was supposed to be used, even down to fertility. Think about, like, if you, prior to having a baby, you could know that you have a folate issue, which folate is critical to brain formation. It's critical to just the baby's health. You knew you had that. So your body's not taking in folate the natural way. That you could change potentially the way your body holds a baby, creates a baby, that baby's health. Like, it's going that far. So that early and this late, you can actually change the course.
This is transformational in my estimation. I'm amazed by it.
Yeah.
And, I want to dig a little bit deeper. I know we only have X amount of time. Perhaps I'll have to have you back for another session to talk a little bit more about some other things. But for the average consumer out there, including myself, I'm looking at supplements, and there's so many advertisements, on TV, digitally, everywhere. What should people look for in these supplement formulations to ensure they are effective, but most importantly, safe? Can you give any quick tips or some guidelines, Ashlee?
Yeah, I would say always look for third-party testing. Natural doesn't mean natural. And that's unfortunately the way of the world, is people will look and say, oh, it's organic, oh, it's natural. But we're not realizing that a lot of the things that harm us are actually in our soil. And the more natural you go, and you're not testing the supplement to make sure that it's not high in heavy metals, which are naturally in our soil. When you grow something, it's going to be in there. You don't really know what's in the supplement. So I could give you something and say, oh, it's completely natural, but you really don't know the other things lurking that unfortunately aren't tested for. So I would look for third-party testing, transparency on the label. Like, for example, we have a clean label certification because our products have been tested. So they meet label claim. They meet all the guidelines of the FDA. So I'd look for that. And I would look for less fillers as possible. So many people want to say, well, I've got this product and it has 0 fillers. A lot of ingredients cannot go through the encapsulation process, which I know this because I've been in the manufacturing part of it, is that they can't physically go through the encapsulation process without getting sticky, gummy, and sticking and all that. So what they do is they add these fillers like rice flour to kind of help it flow. What some companies will do is they'll use, like, for example, I'll use D3 again. They'll use a D3 that's a powder form that already has those excipients included into it. So now you're just using a raw ingredient of D3, and you don't have to make a label claim that you added an excipient in there. And it's saying, oh, it's excipient free. Well, it's really not. It's just in the raw that you purchased from another country that you don't know their quality control. You don't know those things. So knowing sourcing is very important. So there's so many pieces to, I think, looking at it, but I would definitely say label claims, third-party testing, look to see if they have other ingredients. If they do, then at least they're being very transparent with their excipients. If they don't, you might want to question it. And also just looking for kind of how they're formulating. Are they just putting like a sprinkle on the top and saying, oh, it's got turmeric in it, when it's really not at a level that's going to be effective? That's also a piece.
Just a quick follow up to that. What about where the product is produced? Like, there's a lot of stuff comes from overseas to the US at least.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a firm believer that you do everything as much as you can in the United States, even sourcing, even if it's $1 more per a certain weight, because you do know the quality control is being a little bit higher a standard than maybe, let's just say, China. And you don't know the quality. I've visited manufacturers in other countries. They don't have the specs that we have. So I would say for sure looking at sourcing. Sometimes people say manufactured in the United States, but it doesn't mean that everything comes from the United States. It just means it was put together.
So you need a whole little research team just to figure out what to buy before you buy.
This is true.
That was a practical question Marianne asked you. So I'm going to ask you another practical question because I know we'll run out of time sooner than we can get through everything, as Mary pointed out. You mentioned DNA testing. So I can't go walk into a Walgreens or CVS and just get DNA testing.
No.
Where do I get that done? Does it matter where I get it done? Does it cost a lot of money? Like, enlighten us a little bit about how that process works.
So we do offer DNA testing and methylation testing. I think if you're going to look for a company to do that, it can range from anywhere from $99 to $700. It doesn't mean that the 700 is better. It means you need to look what they're testing for. For sure, methylation needs to be at least 12 plus methylations. Otherwise, it's kind of, some people will just do the MTHFR and the basic ones when you really need to test for a lot of them, because they're all interconnected and they all have like a way of connecting. I would look for that, and I would look for kind of how they report out. So if you're just a consumer and you're getting this done, you obviously want the information coming back to you. You're not like, okay, so now I need a rocket scientist to digest this and say, what do you need? So kind of look for how they report out. Our report is very, very easy, consumer friendly, laid out on a digital format where you can kind of say, here's the food you need to eat. You can even do meal plans through our platform. Here's the supplements you need to take. Here's what you need to avoid. So there's a lot of things that kind of give you that extra, just basic knowledge of what I need to do as an individual to change like my wellness. And I would look for also, just not to be political, but I'd look for if they sell your data. Just because I think that's very, very important, is that you have control over if you can delete your results.
They're going to upload it to some big AI model for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really important because it just is. So I love that you added that. So before we get to our last question, can you share with our audience, and Joseph, please chime in here, any quick tips? So if someone were listening to this episode, what do you want them to take away? Because there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. As I said, we'll have to have you come back on and we could go into other arenas and really dig deep. But again, snapshot, I'm listening to this podcast. What can I take away?
I would say, first and foremost, is look in your cabinet and see what you're taking and maybe stop and kind of push the pause, because I don't think it's going to do you any harm by stopping your vitamin D or vitamin C at this moment. And then kind of think through of, am I going to do this? Can I financially do this? Because I think it's important for people to realize is that they could be causing themselves things going on in their body that they don't realize by overdosing themselves or giving them something that their body just doesn't recognize and can't digest and use properly. So I would just say, pause, don't listen to your neighbor and your best friend and, oh, this worked for me, and think, what's the cost of your wellness? Like, just put that into perspective, and you put it into perspective of if you had, kidney failure, if you had cancer, any of those things that you could have, what's the cost to you? And is it worthwhile spending $200 to say, okay, I could prevent long-term financial issues if I just do this test and find out what my body is mapped out to do? And I think from there is going, okay, I didn't realize, it's taking all those things and my body can't even digest them. But also, if you think about depression, anxiety, and your mood, which is very common in the world today, it could just be the MTHFR gene that's causing you to have those issues. And getting those results could be life-changing, really. So I would say pause.
Joseph, do you have any final thoughts?
Oh, Mary, you just opened Pandora's box.
I know.
I do have, as you were just talking, Ashlee, I was thinking about, well, why even take a pill? Like you could eat, some broccoli, some cauliflower, some carrots, whatever, vegetable minerals and nutrients you need. So I think I know the answer to this question, but what's the benefit of doing this test, taking a supplement versus eating the vitamins and mineral in the way they grew?
So I think the first way to dissect that question is to realize is that supplements are just that. They supplement your diet. And you need to utilize supplements that way. It's not a quick fix. It's not you don't need to eat your greens anymore. It is a supplement. And sometimes when you have certain genes, your body just cannot absorb the things that you're digesting. And I'll give you a very personal is that I have an iron deficiency. I have a mutation. I can eat iron all day long. I can take it in a supplement. My body does not recognize it, cannot absorb it. And I only can do IV infusion. So I think when you talk about diet, sometimes you think that when you eat that broccoli or you eat that vegetable or you eliminate gluten, all these things that I think people have done, you're not really realizing that if my body is utilizing it the way you think it's utilizing. And it could be using a portion of it, but it's not using enough. Or if your DNA said you're going to be low in your B vitamins naturally, that means you need to eat more of what has B in it, which you might not be doing. So either way, they're connected, whether it's your diet or your supplements, but never do supplements as your primary nutrition.
Before Mary sort of wraps up with the last question, every doctor I've gone to says, "Oh, you need more B12," and I think everyone says, "Oh, you need more B12," right? But like to your point about the B vitamins, so
No, and look, there are a lot of consumers do have
deficiencies.
And a lot of people that will say I'm tired usually is deficient in B12.
So for the record, I did take B12 for a while and I stopped taking it. No, I just didn't feel right. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was the other ingredients.
Well, it also could be, again, that you have a gene that your body wasn't even absorbing the B12 properly. And it could be the quality. It could have been a non-methylated. So I think there's so many pieces to that. There are a lot of people that take supplements and say, I didn't feel any different. It doesn't mean the supplements were bad. It doesn't mean that it just means that maybe your body was not utilizing them the correct way.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting. That's the thread that I keep hearing. And I also understand this because I was involved in, health, wellness, fitness for many years. It's not going to happen overnight anyway. Like it's got to be repetitive, but if it's the right repetition, to your point, maybe put a pause. So Ashlee, as we come down to the end of our discussion today, our conversation, you have an amazing resume, credentials, experience. You've done the .com, you practiced as being a physician's assistant, you have this master's degree in science, and you worked in corporate. You could do anything that you wanted. Like, what's your why? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I do it for more of a personal reason. I left the corporate world because I saw that there was a deficiency in the way that we promote supplements. We get the famous actor, we get the famous athlete, we get the politician, we get the famous doctor, and we forget the core of why supplements are important, why consumers should take supplements. We're charging $75 for something that probably costs $3, and that's important to me as well. And I lost my brother to T1 complications. And I felt like there was this piece that I felt the consumers need a place, a resource of just knowledge, education, pick and choose, not this hard sell of like, you need to be taking this and, the spike protein and all these narratives that are happening in the world. kind of say, pause, let's see what's going on in your body, because if your immunity is good, you don't need to worry about all the viruses that potentially could target America or other countries. Your body should naturally fight off a virus. And the ones that stay dormant, we haven't even figured out how to get them out of our bodies. So I think for me, it was, I stepped away and said, I can't push something I don't believe in anymore. I have to make a change, a company that changes the way the consumer looks at wellness and looks at supplements and their own bodies as being very, very unique. So that's kind of how I went into this adventure, and it kind of grew bigger than what I anticipated, because we then moved into other realms of like DNA testing, methylations. We're talking about at-home cancer tests and preventative medicine, which I call disease interception now, because I think that's really what it is. It's not preventing it. It's intercepting it to either push it down the road or never have it. So I just felt like the world doesn't have enough places to go that's not pushed by marketing.
So I love that for so many reasons. And I think Mary is right. We need to bring you back for some follow-up questions and conversation. I am sure anyone who's listening to this wants to learn more about you and all the things you've talked about. So in a couple of words, where can people find you? And we'll put all the details in the show notes, of course.
Yeah, it's Renewology, RENU-ology.com. And that's where they can get their methylation test. If they already did a DNA test, we can actually utilize that information. So they won't need the kit. They can download their results and we can actually test that way as well. So it kind of saves a little dollars on that as well, from all the big chain DNA outlets. And that's pretty much the best way. info@renewology.com is also the way that they can reach out to our team.
Amazing. Ashlee, it's been enlightening and energizing.
I know. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go look at any pill bottle in my house and throw it out. No, just kidding. I don't take any pills. But thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. To all our listeners, thank you for participating. Mary, as always, a pleasure. If you are so kind, we'd love for you to give us 5 stars, a thumbs up, send us feedback, and we look forward to our next episode of the Prime Life Podcast. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life Podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.